Hello everybody, here comes a review of our lecture on minimizing losses. When do we have to deal with losses? We have to deal with them when price drops below minimum ATC. Basically on this graph, this is ATC. So if price drops below minimum ATC, it means there is no way to pick Q that will allow us to make money. ATC always will be larger than price, so profit P minus ATC times Q will always be negative. Alright, so speaking of this formula, one thing we want to make clear is why this formula doesn't work when Q is not zero. Remember, I told you earlier that this formula is very convenient, but it only works if Q is not zero. So P minus ATC times Q only works when Q is not zero. Let's see what's happening when Q is zero. I mean, looking at this formula, you will think that the whole thing will be zero, right? But it's actually not the case. I can tell you right away that if Q is zero in the short run, then profit will be will become losses, right? And it will be equal, and the losses will be equal to our fixed cost, right? Because you're not making anything, so you're not selling anything, and you're cutting on your variable cost because you can do that, right? Variable cost is variable, so you don't have to pay for them if you're not making anything, but fixed cost will always stay. And we can actually see that by going back to the basic formula for profit. So total revenue minus total cost can be shown as PQ, right? Minus total cost as the sum of fixed cost and variable cost. And when Q is zero, that makes this thing zero, but this thing doesn't go anywhere. So in the short run, you're really locked in your fixed cost. All right, so that's why when Q is zero, our profit is equal to our fixed cost, with a negative sign. So basically, our profit is a loss which is equal to our fixed cost. So losses equal to fixed cost again when Q is zero. All right, so next thing we're going to learn today is this rule about something called shutdown point. So minimum AVC is what is known as the shutdown point. Why we call it a shutdown point? Well, because it separates prices of the good, where you want to keep your company running, from those prices when you just want to shut it down and stop producing. That's basically what shutting down means. So the rule goes like this: if market price happens to be larger than your minimum AVC, not ATC, that's important, then it makes sense to keep producing. I see Q is larger than zero, and when we say keep producing, how much? Well, a rule we learned earlier still works. Basically, keep producing at Q, where marginal revenue meets marginal cost. So we saw this rule earlier when we talked about profit maximization. All right, another possibility is when price drops below minimum AVC. And in this case, the company will be better off by shutting down. In other words, by setting Q to 0, getting rid of variable cost, but still dealing with fixed cost. But it's actually a smaller evil than running the company. So fixed cost is your losses. All right, so if we draw a diagram, this is quantity, and basically that's like the diagram where we can put cost curves, but I won't put them here. I will just show you basically the two main points that are important here. So minimum ATC, that's the point that separates prices at which the company can make money. Basically, that's what happens if price is above minimum ATC. From those prices where company is going to lose money. So everything above is where company will make money, everything below is where the company is losing money. But even more importantly, minimum AVC is telling us at what prices we want to keep running, and basically these are those prices that are above minimum AVC. From those prices where we want to shut down, and these are the prices below minimum AVC. So here you want to shut your company down, and above you want to keep running. All right, and again, if price is, I don't know which one to pick, color to pick. Come on. So for ATC, here, basically here, profit could be positive, and all the way down, profit is negative. All right, so, and then we can do this simple exercise to illustrate why this rule works. And to do that, we'll start with the basic formula for profit, total revenue minus total cost, and then we're going to again represent it as PQ, total revenue minus fixed cost plus variable cost. Then we'll keep PQ the way it is, minus fixed cost minus AVC times Q. And then we're going to pick these two terms, put them together, and take Q out. So it will be P minus AVC times Q minus FC. And the point is that if price exceeds minimum AVC, then this part is positive, right? So by producing something or keeping Q above 0, we're going to reduce these losses. But if P is smaller than AVC, and actually that will be, the previous case was this situation, right? And the second case in this situation. So if P is smaller than AVC, then this thing is negative. So by producing stuff and having this thing here, we're going to aggravate our losses. So there will be minus FC minus something else, which we have here. And so our losses will be larger than just fixed cost. And we don't want that, because we have a choice to keep our company shut, in which case we'll be losing fixed cost. So we never want to lose more than fixed cost. All right, next thing, let's take a look at an example. Very simple example that illustrates how this rule works. And we're going to consider maybe renting a truck. So you have very simple choice here. You can either take a load for that day, which will make Q equal 1, or you can refuse it, so it will make U equal 0. And some other numbers, we have fixed costs of $200 per time period, let's say per day. And so this is what you have to pay no matter what, right? That's the nature of fixed cost. And then we have variable cost. And variable costs, when Q is 1, is $50. So if you choose to take an order and run your truck, you will spend $50 probably at gas, on gas. But if you keep your truck idle, so Q is 0, your variable cost will be 0. And we will need average variable cost for our purposes, and of course it's VC over Q. So if you want to keep producing, then it will be just 50. So if you're picking your order, that will be $50 anyways, because you divide by 1. Okay, so let's see how this rule works. So the rule says if price is above minimum AVC, it makes sense to keep running, right? So let's say price is $60. So it's larger than our AVC, but it's not enough to actually to avoid losses. But the thing is that if you keep your company running or take this order, then you will lose less money than keeping your truck idle. So $60 exceeds minimum AVC, which is $50, right? So we know that according to this rule, we should pick Q, well, larger than 0. In this case, basically 1, right? And if you pick Q, so basically you take this order, then your profit will be what? It will be PQ minus TC, so it's basically 60 minus 200 plus 50. So it's minus 190. All right, that's not nice, but if we compare it to keeping truck idle, then we'll see that profit will be equal to negative fixed cost, which is minus $200. So out of these two choices, this one is better. It's a lesser evil, right? So we pretty much illustrated that, yes, because as long as price exceeds minimum AVC, your best choice is to keep your company running. And it's actually, if you think about it, it's quite intuitive, because if your price exceeds your average variable cost, it means that you're covering that cost, right? And actually keeping some profit made on it. So whatever you make on top, above your variable cost, will help you to offset some of your fixed cost losses. All right, next scenario. What if price is actually smaller than minimum AVC? Let's say it's $30. So it's smaller than minimum AVC. So according to the rule, we know that Q should be set at 0, or in other words, we need to shut down. So how do we know it's better? Well, let's go through two possible choices here. So if Q is 0, then profit is negative fixed cost, so we're gonna lose $200 per day. Okay, what will happen if we choose to take an order and run this truck for the day at this price? Well, it will be 30, right? That's what you will get in revenue, minus total cost, which is 200 plus 50. So that will be minus 220. So as you can see, out of these two choices, this choice is better. not surprisingly. So the rule is confirmed. If price is smaller than minimum A, V, C, then your better bet is to shut your company down and just deal with the loss, which equals to negative fixed cost. Okay, so finally what we're going to do is to look at those cost diagrams and figure out how it works there. And for that we will need a graph with those cost curves. So let me draw it real quick for you. And we're gonna have ATC, right? Then MC. And so this is MC, and then we will need AVC. So something like this. Okay, AVC. And I'm going to actually copy it so we can use it one more time. Oops, that's not what I meant. Okay. Copy and then paste. Alright, so now we can go through two possible scenarios. And the first one will be when price exceeds minimum AVC. So something like this. So this is price, let's say price 1. We know it also tells us what marginal revenue is. And then, well, we find this is the point where marginal revenue meets marginal cost. And from there, we go down to the horizontal axis. So this way we read what our quantity is. So this is Q asterisk where marginal revenue meets marginal cost. And so on this vertical line we find everything we need, and we're gonna need ATC, right, because that's how we find profit. And we also will need this. Okay, we will need AVC. Why do we need AVC? It's because we want to see how large our fixed cost is, so we can compare it to those losses we're going to deal with when producing. Okay, so this is ATC, this thing. And well, so now we're ready to find our losses. So remember, P minus ATC times Q is our profit, as long as Q is not 0, right? So that's the formula which is useful to apply here. And basically our losses, not sure which color to pick, maybe this. So ATC minus P, or P minus ATC, which happens to be negative, right, times quantity gives us this rectangle, which, or box, which tells us what our losses are when we are producing at this level of output. Okay, that's how we find our losses. And another thing we can do, we can actually figure out how large our fixed cost is. And hopefully you guys recall from our previous exercises that we can find fixed cost on this diagram as ATC minus AVC times Q. So this is our ATC, this is our AVC, that's why I picked it right away. So this distance is ATC minus AVC, or this thing, and times Q. You see, by the way, this is the point we're picking, not this one. So this green area is telling us how much fixed cost is at this Q. And remember, it actually never changes. It's the same at any Q, but because we're working with this quantity, we're measuring fixed cost against it. So clearly, fixed cost is actually larger than losses we're making when producing at this level. And that's why it actually makes sense to keep producing at this level rather than shutting down. All right, so in another scenario is when price is smaller than AVC. So let's draw it here. To make it easier to work with, I'll move it up so it will be easier to read numbers here. And so this is where MR meets MC, right? This is price 2, and price is always in this case tells us marginal revenue. So that's the point where MR meets MC. So from there we can go up and down, or basically just draw a vertical line through this point, going from ATC down to the horizontal axis. So again, that's the point where MR meets MC. But as we're going to see, it's not the point where we're minimizing our losses. Alright, so again, we'll need what? We'll need ATC to find our profit, and also fixed cost. And we will need AVC again to find fixed cost on this diagram. Okay, so this is ATC, this is AVC, and so we can find so losses, I used pink color. So our losses is ATC minus price, actually price minus ATC, which will be negative because price is smaller than ATC. So which means it's this distance, this difference, times Q. So this box is telling us how much we will be losing when we are producing at Q where MR meets MC. And we also know that if we shut our company down, then we'll be just paying fixed cost. Where is our fixed cost? Well, we know from this slide that it's ATC minus AVC, which basically is this distance, right, times, again, quantity. So now we have this box for our fixed cost. And in this case, fixed cost is actually smaller than the losses we are having when producing at this level of output. So again, it just confirms this rule. If price is below minimum AVC, then your best choice is to shut down. So set Q to 0 and deal with losing your fixed cost, which is better than keeping your company running, because in that case your losses actually will be even larger than your fixed cost. All right, so this is it for this review. and I just fit it into 25 minutes. I hope you guys made it till the end.